Howdy and hello, I'm OhDough. Hope you're doing good. Let's go ahead and read patch 0.400. Rocket Sentry, decreased spread, now prioritizes larger targets, increased range by 25 meters, decreased rockets per salvo by 1 for better ammo economy, increased explosion radius by 3 meters, decreased explosion armor pen, but the projectile still has enough to damage heavily armored targets, increased projectile damage by 100, and the reasoning is the old intent was to saturate an area with rockets, but it made it too inconsistent against medium and larger enemies. We want to make it more consistent against those enemies and give it a better ammo economy to separate it from the autocannon sentry that has a higher damage output but can waste ammo by shooting targets that are already dead. I don't know if I like the way that ended, but I like the changes. What? Machine gun sentry, reduced cooldown by 60 seconds. This is the weaker sentry. The Gatling one goes crazy, goes burr. This one, machine gun sentry, Gatling sentry, rocket sentry, autocannon sentry, mortar sentry, EMS mortar sentry. Where's the Tesla tower? Increased durability by 80%. I love this change. It'll make things survive longer. I don't know if it'll make them better versus rockets that might still one-shot them. But I'm bummed they didn't put the Tesla tower in here because that still needs a bit more durability, if you ask me. HMG emplacement. Increased rotation by 100%. One of the biggest things folks were not happy about was how slow it turned. This should make it more fun to use. Anti-personnel minefield and incendiary mines both got a buff. The minefield got 100 damage, and the incendiary mines got a 60 damage increase. Orbital Gatling. Increased fire rate by 25%. Increased rounds per salvo by 30%. Increased armor pen can now damage heavy armored targets and decrease cooldown by 10 seconds. Orbital Gatling barrage was not effective at dealing with any targets. Yeah, it was bad. We want to be better at saturating the target area and also be able to do damage against heavy armored units. Orbital P-Strike, decreased cooldown by 10 seconds and decreased spawn call-in time by 2, making it much faster to arrive and be used. And the notes here are funny. The Orbital P-Strike's original intent was to be used against spawners and fixed positions. However, this hasn't stopped the community from using it against pretty much everything, which is good. It's a good thing. You want players to use more things in more situations, giving more variety and having them have more ways to have fun playing the same game. All these tools that we have can change the way we experience the game and give us our own desired variety and our own content in a sense, which is what players have been wanting for a while, and I really appreciate this change. May seem like a small adjustment, but this is what you're looking for, is just minor buffs to make things more fun to use. Orbital Airburst Strike, decreased cooldown by 20 seconds. That's also good. Airburst Strike is a nice stratagem, it just has a long cooldown. Making it shorter makes it more likely to be used. Could maybe use a bit more in the future, we'll see how folks feel. Eagle 110 rocket pods. While these changes may look like a straight up nerf, that is not the intention. Please see the blog post for more information, which I have in all these patch notes. Improved targeting. Increased projectile armor penetration now does 100% damage to heavily armored enemies instead of 50%. Decreased projectile damage by 350 to compensate for improved targeting and the extra damage from the increased armor pen. Decreased explosion armor pen. Explosions can no longer damage heavily armored enemies. The Eagle rocket pods were very inconsistent in dealing with its main targets, heavily armored enemies. It might still be inconsistent, we'll see though. And it was bad versus Chargers. It would almost never one-shot them, almost never. Hulk's kind of the same deal. In fact, it was better versus tanks and tank towers. So it was horrible versus heavily armored units, but the changes we are making aim to make it more consistent at dealing with these targets, but it will still not be a surefire way of outright killing them. If that's the case, I would give it one more use. Make it so you have 4 rocket pods, if not 5. That way it won't one-shot them, but it will weaken them and you can use more of them and then have to wait for the rearm. Eagle Strafing Run. Increase uses from 3 to 4. Increased armor pen can now damage heavily armored enemies. The Eagle Strafing Run is supposed to be a tool to effectively deal with small groups of medium armored enemies. It doesn't have enough runway to make that make sense. You need to have more shots being fired width-wise for the damage to be meaningful and for me to use this. To that end, we have increased its armor pen to be able to reliably penetrate medium armored targets and soften up heavy armored enemies. Grenade launcher. increased explosion damage by 50. I think it needs more than that. It needs to have a better armor pin by maybe 1, but that might be... we'll see. The grenade launcher is intended to be good at softening up hordes of enemies and provide utility for destroying spawners. While it is still good at destroying spawners, the explosion was a little too weak to reliably damage medium enemies. The damage, or the change in its explosion damage, should put it in a better place when it comes to dealing with hordes, and more effective against some medium armored enemies. I don't think that it's going to be good still, because you only get 30 rounds, and you didn't increase its effectiveness versus heavy units, which it needs to have some utility against them, and it just won't. Its armor pin's too low. Still a nice change. Buffs are good, even if minor, because it makes it more fun for the folks that do want to use it and liked it before. So no complaints for that. Heavy machine gun. Increase projectile damage by 50. Increase projectile damage against durable body parts by 10%. Decrease fire rate by a decent bit. So the second fire, it's not going to be 450, 600, 750. And way back when, it was 1200 on the high end. I don't know if that's the play, brother. Decrease reload time by 1.5 seconds. Huge. Increase stagger strength. The HMG failed to deliver on the fantasy of a heavy machine gun when it was released. It still kind of will, because you don't have any more ammo. I know that they want to make it so the magazine looks as if it can hold more ammo. I don't think that players care. The players you're trying to target don't care. They want it to be fun to use, and this will be more fun to use, but it still needs more ammo. Lowering the reload time was awesome. Still only having 75 rounds is less than awesome. The machine gun. Decreased reload time by 0.5 seconds. I love that. Seems small, don't care. I like when games lower reload times, not to the point that it's instant. I'm not looking for instant shooting. I just want to not spend as much time reloading and more time shooting things. Because the whole reason I'm playing this game is to shoot stuff, and it feels fun when you're shooting things. It doesn't feel as fun when you're reloading all the time. The machine gun didn't have a crazy reload time here, so having any improvement at all is massive. IMO. Increased max amount of magazines from 3 to 4. Also a good change. The intent of the machine gun was that it should be a great crowd clear weapon and the ability to tackle medium armored enemies. The drawbacks of the machine gun are that you have to sit still while reloading, and this made it hard to compete with the stalwart's mobility. True, I would use the stalwart over machine gun for that very reason. I might still do that. It depends. The machine gun Sentry, Gatling Sentry, and the XO45 Patriot Exosuit Gatling. Increased armor projectile damage from 80 to 90, so increased by 10. Increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 7.5% to 25%. I can't do that math in my head right now. I woke up it's late. It's early. It's something. Liberator, Stalwart, and Guard Dog. Increased projectile damage against durable body parts by 13%. If you bought the Stalwart, that makes me want to use that over the machine gun still, unless the machine gun feels all the more better. Liberator Concussive. Increased projectile damage against durable body parts by 12%. Adjudicator. Increased mag size by 5. It still needs more. Increased projectile damage against durable body parts by 10%. Assault rifles are going to have to get a lot more ammo to be anywhere near competitive with other weapons, unless they plan on nerfing the ones that feel good, but doing that will just make it so you just have less enjoyment overall. I think that assault rifles still need to have a bit more ammo. The damage is better for most of them, and durable damage and whatnot, but the ammo is still lacking. And there's a nerf to ammo here. For Tenderizer. Tenderizer, increased projectile damage by 35, increased projectile damage against durable body parts by 7, decreased ammo by 5, and decreased number of magazines by 2. Increased stagger strength. Tenderizer was released in a non-representative state as it used the incorrect stats. It was horrible, and folks tried to defend it. I'm not sure why. It was a bad gun. It didn't have its own niche, and it felt like a worse Liberator. I think that, speaking of niches, we should just get a weapon upgrade system at some point and then just ditch a lot of the weapons we currently have and make them upgradable to cut down on all of the unnecessary bloat and get rid of this idea of having to make everything feel different, which just makes it feel kind of worse, because eventually things will have to feel worse to feel different, unless you want to give us power creep, which I don't think is the goal. We're restoring justice and bringing it back to its intended design, which is a very precise assault rifle that rewards high accuracy play by having a heavy hitting round that doesn't penetrate medium armor. I'm still going to one trick Instant Breaker until it gets nerfed, but I can see the vision. That's where I'm at though. Looking forward to an upgrade system for Shurskis. The Plas Purifier. Increase projectile armor pen to be the same as the explosion. Decrease explosion damage fall off. I'm pretty sure Purifier didn't really have medium pen before, and it said it did. Just was a kind of a lie. Sort of how the Jar 5 says it has explosion, but it doesn't. The Explosive Crossbow. Increase explosion armor penetration to be the same as the projectile buff. Increased demolition strength, can destroy bug holes and bot fabricator buildings. Huh. Added medium penetration tag. Eruptor. Increased total damage by 150. Yeah, that's math. Per shot. They're still working on adding more shrapnel, but they'll explain why it's scuffed. In one of the previous patches, we removed the shrapnel from the explosion as it made the Eruptor's ability to spike damage too much for a primary weapon, and for a support weapon even. Its theoretical max was over 9,000. How, though? How are folks doing that? Shooting the ground? And introduce some unexpected interactions. We acknowledge that the Eruptor has lost a good portion of its capabilities, and the additional damage boost didn't make up for the loss of shrapnel. At least I recognize that. Adding back shrapnel is quite tricky because of the low visibility of shrapnel, which sometimes created situations where you or fellow Helldivers died with very little feedback of what killed you. Didn't that only start happening more often when they made it so reflection or deflection was a thing based on hitting surfaces? Diligence. Increase projectile damage against durable body parts by 15%. Some enemies have durable body parts that received only a portion of base damage from projectiles. If it can't one-shot Devastator still, it won't be great of a weapon. And Diligence and Diligence CS are weird in the sense of... I just think that the game needs to have an upgrade system. Because right now it's fine to have weapons that are just better, because that's your progression. Otherwise, there's no progression to be had whatsoever. But it's weird once you have them all unlocked and you just recognize, dang, I have all these weapons unlocked and so many are just useless. I don't think it was wise to adjust recoil in this way to make it feel worse in any way, shape, or form. Because a lot of weapons don't feel great to some people, and it gets even worse when you're on roller. Gameplay. Removed operation modifier AA defense, reducing the stratagem slots by 1. Ain't that something, folks? We want to look over the operation modifiers in the future. Right now, there are too few of them, which become repetitive, and the ones we have do not create variety or promote different playstyles. I wonder who said that. I wonder. I didn't say it exactly, but I definitely I have complained about this for sure. For now, we removed this one because it only encourages a player to bring the best stratagems and does not promote variety. I deserve an apology by all the Muppets in the comment section trying to say some nonsense. I deserve that. Will I get it? Heck no. Disable the retrieve essential... Oh, no shot. Disabled the retrieve essential personnel defend event mission for the time being. You people, I made so many videos on this, and folks still can't catch a clue. It's the best mission for samples, and y'all got taken away because you can't figure it out. I was in the same boat for a bit. I hated it with a passion, but the moment you know how it works, you just do that, and it becomes one of the easiest missions ever, and you get so many samples. It's one of my favorite missions. I love collecting samples. Going to a location on that mission and seeing 15, 16, 17 samples in one spot is euphoric. Super samples. Super samples now spawn on difficulty 6. The reason for this change is that we feel that their existence only on difficulty 7+ forced some players to play the game on a harder difficulty than they wanted to comfortably play on. We do, however, still want a gating of them, but a less punishing one. Fair enough. I wonder if they increase how much you get on 7, 8, 9, or just made it so 6 is 2. Because 7 is 3. Pretty sure. The Siege artillery stratagem is no longer blocked by stratagem jammers or ion storms, and is available after the mission timer ends when the destroyer leaves close orbit. And the destroyer leaves close orbit. That's pretty huge. I heard a lot of folks talking about that being a change they want, and they got it. That's massive. Enemies in melee range of the gates in the evacuate high value assets mission will now target it more consistently. Less than awesome. Added the ability to chat from in-game menus and mission loading screen. Huge. Updated some first-person crosshairs to improve readability. We'll see about that, but I do appreciate the effort there. Social, invite-only lobbies are now supported. Armors, new armor passive, peak physique. 50% melee damage increase and 30% weapon ergonomics. I like that. Planet and hazards. Spike plant. The spike plant that appears on certain plants has been reworked. No longer causes bleed or stamina drain if hit by plant explosion or spikes. Now pops 3 times, sending spikes everywhere, dealing increased damage. If you get one shot by a plant, there'll be many complaints. Fire tornadoes. Fire tornadoes have had their behavior change. They should no longer feel like they actively respond to player movement and should move more randomly. While a fire tornado storm takes place, enemy vision is reduced. Player vision is unaffected. Fire tornadoes being more random should result in more variance and folks not having the worst time possible. Trimmers have had their spawning tweaked to be slightly more random and have had their epicenter size and effect range increased. This change should result in more situations where enemies away from the player get stunned, as well as reducing how consistently the player had a trimmer occur next to them. Visibility. A lot of planets have had their fog amounts tweaked to be a bit less harsh and dense. Hopefully darkness got reduced as well, to provide less fatigue from constantly fighting on planets with bad visibility. We still intend there to be foggy planets with worse visibility, but the balance was a bit off. Desert planets such as Errata Prime, Short Bay, Hellmire, and similar. Highlands planets such as Valeria 5, Martyr Bay, Oshwine, and similar. Artificial light sources have had their intensity rebalanced and reduced across the board to fix situations of lights completely blinding the player. Vegetation that's large enough to slow the player now has an extra function. When inside the vegetation, Helldivers will be harder to detect. We got bush campers now. Reducing their detection range by enemies. This effect stacks with other detection reducing effects such as nighttime, being crouched or prone, or things such as the scout armor passive. LARPers are going to rise up. Actually, they're going to stay on their knees, but they're going to rise somewhere. Ion storms. Added additional VFX for ion storms. Enemies. Acid effect. The acid effect applied by hunters, bug mines, etc. now allows you to sprint while under the effect and slows you by 30% instead of 50%. That's big. Duration has increased by 1 second, less than big. These changes are intended to make it less punishing for players to be slowed while fighting the Terminids. This also allows us to use it more in more places without making the experience very punishing. For example, the Battle Spewers. Armored enemy balance. We have toned down the amount of heavily armored enemies like Battle Titans, Chargers on higher difficulties and instead spawn more hordes of smaller enemies. I kind of like that. It's more fun to shoot the smaller guys right now. Our current support weapons aren't that wild, realistically, so it's more fun getting a bunch of kills too. The difference should be quite noticeable, and the amount should be at least 30% less than before during bug breaches. We have also toned down slightly how many hulks that spawn for the automatons. Our intent is to ease up on the demand of anti-tank weapons, and by having more of the other enemies give a better incentive for the group to bring stratagems and weapons that take care of the hordes. Instant breakers getting nerfed. Patrols. Patrol spawning is now back to how it worked before patch 0.300, with some slight tweaks so that the levels are less empty if you are far away from important locations with enemy presence. And that's a big deal. I see what they're trying to do with that, and I do appreciate it. It is boring when you're walking from a location, even solo, and you see nothing. Which is kind of why I didn't mind the previous patrol change, like having more patrols. What I did mind is how accurate enemies are. The accuracy of enemies on top of having more enemies made it not very fun. So they also reduced that. Stunning. Medium and large sized enemies now don't get stunned as easily. Does that affect stun grenade? This will not affect the stratagems that stun, and will mostly just affect how easily the pummeler can stun larger enemies. Terminids. Battle Spewers and Nursing Spewers. Battle spewers will now get slowed if they lose their leg. Spewer puke now applies the acid effect. Oh, yeah. Spewer puke now only damages Helldivers up to 4 times per second, and the Helldiver cannot take damage multiple times from the same projectile. This should reduce instances where you are instantly killed by it. Bile Titan. Bile Titan's head is slightly less durable against weaker anti-tank weapons, such as Railgun. The Bile Titan's puke can now only damage the Helldiver 4 times per second, same as the Spewer. The damage is still very deadly, so running through their puke is not recommended because you'll probably still get rolled instantaneously. And they also increase the spread. Charger Behemoth. The Charger Behemoth is now joining the battle on higher difficulties. It can now also take more damage than before. This enables us to spawn fewer Chargers, but still retain difficulty. Can you one-shot them with anti-tank, like Edicts? And how many shots from a railgun does it take to kill them? And can I test it versus the low-level Chargers on level 3 and have them take the same, have them be effective the same way? Those are my current questions. Chargers will now only show bleed-out effects from the body if the bleed-out state has started. It can still show bleed-out effects from their mouth without having started the bleed-out state. And fun fact, the Charger Behemoth takes longer to bleed out by about, it's a long time, like 20 seconds, compared to regular Chargers, which bleed out in roughly 4 when that has properly started, I believe. Also a good change. There's more visibility and more proper conveyance, that's a word, right, of what's happening. Automatons, Hulk Scorcher. The Hulk's flamethrower now does less damage and cannot damage Helldivers more than 4 times per second. In addition, the Helldiver cannot be damaged multiple times by the same flame projectile. This should reduce instances where you are instantly killed by it. Also, freaking monumental. Automaton tanks. The tank armor value on the front has been lowered to be the same as the non-vent section on the rear of the tank. Are tanks the easiest thing to break in the game now? Is that what I'm currently reading? The intent was initially that it was supposed to be more armored in the front, but the visual language did not show that. The vent on the back of the tank's turret still has the same armor value as before, but will check for explosion directions correctly now. Ooh, that could be kind of rough. Before you could get it didn't matter how you hit it, you would do big damage. Now, maybe not the case. The damage of exploding automaton jump packs has been decreased by 50%. It will still set you on fire, though. Those used to one-shot, and it was frustrating. Oh my lord. Galactic War, introducing warp links, supply lines, and origin of attacks. Supply lines were previously not shown in the Galactic War map to reduce clutter and improve readability. However, based on the feedback from our community, we have made an implementation showing them on the map. This solution tries to maintain the general readability while still exposing the system to players in the game. Yeah, there's basically a system that I didn't know about, and you had to go on a different website to figure out what you should attack first, planet-wise, to make it the most effective you possibly could, and know what planet to attack and progress that way. I wasn't a fan of that. I didn't know what was going on, and I was lost. You will now also be able to see which planet an attack is originating from, potentially allowing for the community to stop the attack at its source. We have also updated visuals in the sector and planet info pop-ups. And fixes. The spear now has better targeting, but the damage is still kind of sketch. Intense heat and extreme cold environmental modifiers will now affect the Quasar Cannon's reload speed and will show correctly in the HUD. Hot planets are just a no-go for the Quasar now. You would take 20.5 seconds to shoot your shot, including charge and recharge time. But when playing on cold maps, it would take you 15.5, something like that. I feel better. And there's probably some more changes here that I just don't really quite fix the issue where players can throw unlimited amount of grenades by pressing the quick grenade button right after closing stratagem menu. Those are the changes. I have no idea how anything feels. I'll try out some stuff over the next few days and post some videos. Anywho, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Later.